So welcome everybody to Scottsdale Neighborhood College, our second last class in the spring 2021 session. So happy. It's always a great day when it's a neighborhood college day. It's even more fun for me when it's a history day. And let's get to today's class, Scottsdale Stories Behind the Business. There are two things I'd like to bring up before we get officially started. For those of you who've seen me before, you know that I can go off on tangents. In fact, I know this about myself, so I plan to go off on one tangent for each story. Sometimes there's something about Scottsdale, sometimes it's about the Valley or Arizona. But I've been told by some people who attend that the tangents are the best parts of the stories I tell. Now, they'll be clearly marked. You'll know when I'm on a tangent. I'll probably say, I'm now going to go off onto this tangent and explain why. And the Scottsdale question. There are parts of each story that are not directly about Scottsdale, but it's around the area of Scottsdale, and they all center in Scottsdale. There's all a nexus to the city of Scottsdale. And if you lived in Scottsdale at that time, these things I'm going to bring up would have been important to you. It's still part of the story, and I've decided to include it. Our first story, I've called The Ice Cream Parlor and the Cartoonist. And yes, for those of you who've been there, I'm talking about the Sugar Bowl. This ice cream parlor has been a fixture of Old Town for more than 60 years. There have been two owners, but those two owners are in the same family. But first, let's take a deep dive into the history of what was this property before it was the Sugar Bowl. And if we go back, let's take a look at what it looks like now. You see this is our Old Town area. We have Indian School Road up here, Main Street, First Avenue, First Street, Scottsdale Road. And this is the area we're talking about, 4005 North Scottsdale Road. If we go back in time a little bit, let's say 85 years, we'll see in this wonderful aerial that I don't know who did this, but thank you to whoever did this. They labeled everything on this photo. It's so awesome. So we can see that there was nothing actually on that same corner, but the closest thing was called Scotty's Shop, and he owned that property of this First Avenue and Scottsdale Road. Behind him was Kimsey's service station and garage. This was also the place where you went to pay your electric bill back then, because he ran the electric company for Scottsdale. Next has Anderson's Marketplace. It became the Lulabelle after that. It became Dave's Hamburgers until the pandemic, and now I saw that it's called Bell's Louisiana Kitchen, and it's just opening up. But all the detail that you see in here, if you look on this picture, it's just phenomenal. Not only do we see where E.O. Brown's general store is, but we see that the Brown family had a home right behind it. We also see incredible detail you'd never normally catch. Someone marked where the privy was here. Just amazing. The post office, which we would call, now it was Porter's Western Wear for years. Now it's called Porter's Western Bar, but above that was Doc Whiting, right over here, had his office. Here's J. Chew's Market. Now, of course, we call this Mexican Imports, but it's still owned by the Song family all this time from 1935 and before that. So great view of Scottsdale at the time we're talking about back in the 30s. Let's take a look on the ground level. Here's Scotty's shop. Elliot Gosley Scott, better known as Scotty, was born in Kentucky in 1884, just 4 years before Winfield and Helen Scott purchased the land that became Scottsdale. In 1913, he got a job from the US government as a blacksmith and moved to Keams Canyon, Arizona on the Hopi Reservation. He met and married Mary York, who was from Oklahoma. They married in her hometown, then they went to Oklahoma City for their honeymoon. In 1922, the Scotts moved to Scottsdale, where Scotty started farming 10 acres of land. In 1925, he started a blacksmith shop on Scottsdale and First Street. In 1957, he moved the shop to Brown and 2nd Street and went into business with his son Kenton until 1967. He sold the business in 1970. Scotty was appointed to the first town council of Scottsdale in 1951 and served until 1960. He was also a member of the Scottsdale Historical Society and served on the board of Camelback Cemetery for 30 years. Here's a picture of the interior of Scotty's blacksmith shop. It says it's circa the 40s. I think it's closer to the 50s, and I'll make my point in just a second. There's Scotty, but here's his son, Kenton. And Kenton was born in 1922. So if this was around 1940, he would be 18 to 28 in this photo. And I think that looks more like a man in his 30s than in his teens or early 20s. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Here's another great photo that I found of Scotty with Mort Kimsey and with Gabe Brooks. And I must confess that when I first saw this, Scotty in the middle, Mort Kimsey, he also served on the town council with Scotty, the very first one, all the way until he was elected the second mayor of Scottsdale. But of all these three, the person I knew the least about was Gabe Brooks. I didn't know anything about him, so I started to do some research about him and found out that he had a machine shop that was on display at the McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park. And the pandemic was on, it was closed. I was trying to think of how I could see it. As fate would have it, I received a phone call the same day from Bill Scarborough, who's a Scottsdale resident and a board member of the Scottsdale Railroad and Mechanical Society. He'd seen some of my history presentations and wanted to ask me some questions. When I found out of his connection to the railroad park, I asked him if he knew someone I could speak to try and see Gabe Brooks' shop. He put me in touch with Nick Molinari, the park manager, and that led to this tangent. So thanks, Bill Scarborough. Let's learn a little bit about this fascinating man. The business card of Gabe Brooks, still hanging on the wall of his shop, says he digs wells for residents of Scottsdale in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and that he digs water wells from 6 to 10 inches. Now, finding out that the guy who dug wells is Gabe Brooks would be similar to finding out that the physics teacher who taught at the local high school was Albert Einstein. It's like, what's he doing here? Now, to clarify, that was a simile. Albert Einstein did not teach physics at Scottsdale High. He built a 20 by 20 machine shop on his 160-acre ranch north of on Scottsdale Road in 1930. And at that time, Brooks was considered one of the premier machinists in the country. In the early 40s, the machine shop was moved to the northwest corner of Scottsdale and Thomas, and then it was moved again in 1945 to 7125 East Earl Drive, where he operated until he died in 1972. During World War II, Brooks' knowledge of machinery was so well known that he was contracted to build precision tools and parts for B-20 bombers. Here's what it looks like today if you go to the McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park. It's just west of the Pullman train car and is on permanent display. Unfortunately, it's closed for the duration of the pandemic. This photo was taken just yesterday. Here's a picture inside. Nick Molinari opened the door and let me take a look inside and snap these photos on December 17, 2020. So here's another shot. What's really cool about this is you see the belts that control all the machinery are hooked up through the ceiling and it's all operated on one motor. Pretty amazing. So in the mid-50s, here's a picture of the mid-50s of Scottsdale. You see there's homes all around and still the downtown area right here, and then homes all the way around it. They built a new business using the westmost western town motif to make it look like a hardware store and a tire and battery store, Firestone Western Motor Service, all with that Western theme to it. By 1957, the building was empty, and into this came Jack Huntress. Jack Huntress was born in Illinois and graduated Dartmouth College in 1933. He spent 20 years in merchandising and advertising in Detroit, Boston, Chicago. He was a marketing executive for Chrysler, and he was assigned to go to Anaheim and put together a marketing plan for Disneyland, which was a collaboration between Disney and Chrysler. He drove from Detroit to Anaheim and went through Scottsdale. He really liked Scottsdale, and after he decided he needed a change in scenery, it was the same time his wife was having problems with asthma and was advised to move to a dry place. and Scottsdale seemed like the perfect place for him. So he moved out here in 1957 with 3 young children. One night, according to Carol Huntress, his nephew, he took the family to Lulabelle for dinner. Some other diners at the next table chided him for bringing children into a liquor establishment. The town of Scottsdale had restaurants and bars, but there's really nothing for the family. He decided to make his own family business. He rented some space on the southeast corner of Scottsdale Road and First Avenue from Larry Ives. Jack and Larry went into partnership to open the Sugar Bowl, taking the spot from the hardware store and the Firestone tire business. He opened the Sugar Bowl and bought Larry out within a year. He then bought the land and the business from Ives. There was a restaurant and the Mark Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco called Blum's, and Jack liked the pink and tufted booths and the pink striped wallpaper. He put a soda fountain in, and Carol Hunter says to this day, it's the star of the restaurant. This is definitely a family establishment. There are no TVs in the entire restaurant. Even the arcade does not have any violent video games. This is a place where families can sit and talk to each other as they eat. Jack Huntress had the menu designed in the 50s by a local graphic artist named Pat Thompson. The menu has remained the same, although the prices are no longer 15 cents for a sundae. When the Sugar Bowl opened on Christmas Day of 1958, some locals thought that 15 cents was too expensive and the restaurant would never make it. Boy, were they wrong. Most people know that the Sugar Bowl serves the most wonderful ice cream, but did you know it serves food? The entire left side of this menu is all food, and then the 3 other pages are all ice cream. And the most famous thing of all is the top hat sundae right here underneath it says Super Fancy Sundaes and Splits, the top hat sundae. So this menu has remained the same since it opened in 58. Jack Huntress won a council seat in the new town of Paradise Valley after the mayor, and then the mayor moved away and resigned, and Jack was appointed mayor, and then he was elected mayor over and over again for 10 years. Carol Huntress referred to Jack as the Herb Drinkwater of Paradise Valley. Jack Huntress, at the time that he became mayor of Paradise Valley, also was the president of the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce. He was a board member of the Friends of the Scottsdale Public Library. He was a board member of the Rotary Club of Scottsdale, and he was instrumental in the development of Scottsdale Memorial Hospital, now called Honor Health Osborne. And on the right, these are some of his things, his accomplishments that he listed when he was applying, when he was trying to become elected mayor. In 1971, Jack decided not to run for re-election after 10 years as mayor of Paradise Valley. He received many congratulatory letters, but the most interesting was from former Paradise Valley resident and then U.S. Justice of the Supreme Court, William Rehnquist. He wrote in a letter to one of his colleagues to pass on to Jack, Jack has been mayor so long that I do not think I fully recognize the position was an elected office or that someone else was legally capable of occupying it. Of course, William Rehnquist later became the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1983, Jack's nephew, Carol Huntress III, was a graduate of ASU, and he was bored by a desk job in Wisconsin. He moved to Arizona from Wisconsin and asked his Uncle Jack for a job. He started washing dishes and working in the kitchen, eventually working up to becoming the manager. In 1985, he purchased the Sugar Bowl from Jack Huntress, and he's owned the Sugar Bowl for 35 years. Today, the Sugar Bowl operates as an ice cream parlor and restaurant, and this south part over here is called the Sugar Bowl Fiesta. It's a game room and private room for functions. Carol leased the Fiesta arcade in 2005, and there are 40 seats that can be used for private parties or a reserved table for a birthday party. Before he had rented, it was a Western wear shop called the Yellow Rose for 20 years. And the first tenant that he can remember was called Cancellation Shoes. And ironically, he ended up buying the home of the people who own Cancellation Shoes. Many people come back year after year. He says that some people get off the plane and are driven straight to the sugar bowl to make it still there, to make sure it's still there so they can eat their ice cream. There's an irony when you sit in one of the pink tufted booths, this one in the northeast corner of the area. If you sit right around here and you look out the window, you can see a neighbor that moved in just before the start of the pandemic. It's a strange neighbor to see across the street from the oldest and most established ice cream parlor with more than 60 years experience in Old Town. If you look across the street, you see it. And just in case it's not apparent, let's zoom in. And you can now see the development of perhaps the worst location choice by a corporation, Häagen-Dazs, right across the street from the Sugar Bowl. So now you know the development of the Sugar Bowl, from a blacksmith shop to a hardware store, auto repair shop, to the venerable institution it is today. Now let's look at the second part, the cartoonist and the ice cream parlor. Bill Keane was born William Aloysius Keane in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1922. He taught himself to draw comics at age 14 by copying The New Yorker. His first cartoon was published the same year on the amateur page of the Philadelphia Daily News. While creating cartoons in high school, he removed the second L from his name and went by Bill, B-I-L, Keane for the rest of his life. He was asked once why he went with one L, and he said, "When I started drawing cartoons on the wall, my parents knocked the L out of me." Bill Keane's sense of humor. In World War II, Bill was hired as an artist working in the War Bonds office in Brisbane, Australia. The woman in the next desk to him was Thelma Karn, who was known as Thel. He got up the nerve to ask her out, and they started dating. In 1945, he returned to the US, and they continued a long-distance romance. In 1948, he went back to Australia and married Thel. They moved to Philadelphia. And the artwork is pictures that Bill Keane did during World War II. In an interview with the Paradise Valley Historical Committee in 1999, Bill said that he and Thel lived in Pennsylvania and had 5 children. He moved from Pennsylvania on the recommendation of his doctor due to allergies. He was told to move to a dry climate, and Phoenix was a perfect choice. Keane's home on Joshua Tree Road in Paradise Valley is shown right here in this picture. It has 4,229 square feet on 1.13 acres with 6 baths. The lot also has a pool, tennis court, and attached guest suite. Great example of mid-century modern architecture. When the home comes up for sale, it actually lists that this is the former home of Bill Keane from the Family Circus. When Bill, Thel, and the Keane children got to Paradise Valley, they found a favorite spot at the Sugar Bowl. And in 1960, he started the Family Circle cartoon. That was until he was threatened with a lawsuit from the Family Circle magazine. And so he changed the name to the Family Circus and is run that way ever since. The first comic that mentioned the Sugar Bowl was this one. It's hung at the cashier's cage at the restaurant. If you look at it, it says, on the border, it says, "Best wishes to our neighbor, Jack Huntress," and it's signed Bill Keane and the Family Circus, dated August 21st, 1964. And the cartoon shows the grandfather taking the children back from apparently the Sugar Bowl, because he's holding a bag that says the Sugar Bowl. It says, and the children say to Grandpa, "Can we take you for a walk again tomorrow, Granddad?" Very cute. Lining the walls in the Fiesta room is artwork from the Keane family. Let's take a look at some of it. These are 2 I found that had the Sugar Bowl on it. The cartoon on the left was from June 13, 2005, and was signed to the Sugar Bowl that same month. And you can actually see the Sugar Bowl clearly listed. The one on the right is undated. The cartoon has the dedication, "For all the sweet people at the Sugar Bowl, love Bill Keane." There you can see the Sugar Bowl. The Family Circus debuted on February 29th, 1960 in 19 newspapers. And today it's over 1,500 newspapers. One of the original artworks on the wall refers to a popular character of Not Me, who was seemed to be invisible to parents. It was part of Bill Keane's humor that made you smile without making you laugh out loud. Note the father and mother are based on Bill and Thel. There are only 4 children compared to the real-life family of 5 children. However, one of the characters, Jeff, has the same name as the cartoon character. The characters are named Billy, Dolly, Jeffy, and PJ. Bill said he would hang out with his children all the time. They thought that he wanted to spend time with them, but he was trying to get ideas. He said that they provided the inspiration and he provided the perspiration. Possibly my favorite Family Circus cartoon, it captures a wonderful parenting philosophy. It says, parents can give their things or their time. Time is better. Bill Keane. Carol Huntress said that Bill Keane was a great friend to the Huntress family. He would come in and he would ask for a menu, and while he ate, he would draw something on the menu. And then when he was finished, he would give it to Carol, and the cartoon would be an original Family Circus cartoon. This one says, I see a lot of pink and white stripes. I must have had too much strawberry and vanilla ice cream. It's signed, Love to our Sugar Bowl friends, Bill Keane, June 3rd, 2003. Carol had it framed and it hangs on the wall as a wonderful memory of a great friend. Bill Keane was, when he was interviewed for his historic interview with the Town of Paradise Valley Historical Committee, mentions the Sugar Bowl in his interview. In fact, the very last appearance by Bill Keane in public was in this November 2011 issue of Arizona Highways magazine. And in it was an article called Retro Arizona that listed 22 of Arizona's best drive-ins, diners, hotels, and more. One of the retro businesses was the Sugar Bowl, and the photographer asked Bill Keane to come out and take a photo in the iconic Ice Cream Parlor. There it is. The photo was taken when he was 89, and the issue came out a week before he died on November 8th, 2011. He was a real trooper coming out for the photo shoot, and he told the photographer, "You're never too old for ice cream." And now for the famous Where Are They Now section. Jack's photo remains on the wall of the Sugar Bowl. Carol Hunter said that Jack was the Herb Drinkwater of Paradise Valley, and he also served on so many things for Scottsdale. And when he died, the first thing that they see in the cover of this obituary was Jay Huntress, the ex-owner of the Sugar Bowl. It lists everything else in his obituary, but this is definitely what he was known for and famous for. Carol Huntress III still owns and operates the Sugar Bowl after more than 35 years. His children helped to run the business, and he told me that there's not only a Carol Huntress IV, but there's now a Carol Huntress V. He said he's too young to run the business, but perhaps one day. In 2019, the Sugar Bowl was inducted into the Scottsdale History Hall of Fame. And that's something from the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce. In a fascinating parallel to my Gabe Brooks tangent, there's a statue to honor Bill Keane in the Family Circus at the McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park, just south of the carousel. It's called Giddy Up Daddy, and the sculptor was Debbie Gessner, and it was unveiled in 2013 on the 2nd anniversary of the death of Bill Keane on November 8, 2011. The plaque says, if there's a philosophy behind this feature, it is this: a home filled with love and laughter is the happiest place in the world. Phil died at age 82 in 2008, and Bill died at 89 in 2011 from congested heart failure. They're buried at the Holy Redeemer Cemetery of Phoenix, Arizona. One of the things I like about the grave marker is they mentioned that they are the parents of Gail, Neil, Glenn, Chris, and Jeff. And I also like that they included the picture of the children, his cartoon children, on the wall. I want to tell you a couple things about two of his children. Glenn Keane was hired by Walt Disney to be an animator. He worked on animated movies from 1977 to 2010, including The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, Tarzan, and Tangled. He was named a Disney legend in 2013. In 2017, he decided to direct a short film after he heard the letter to basketball that Kobe Bryant put out after he retired. And he made a short film called Dear Basketball that was narrated by Kobe Bryant. In 2018, Glenn Keane and Kobe Bryant won the Academy Award for Best Short Film. The youngest son, Jeff Keane, first became an inker for his father and took over the cartoon. After Thel died, Bill let Jeff draw the cartoon full time. He still contributed every once in a while. Today, Jeff signs each cartoon he draws, Jeff and Bill Keane, to acknowledge the lasting legacy of his father. The next time you're in the Sugar Bowl, or if it's your first time, enjoy some wonderful ice cream. And after you're full, take a look at the walls and enjoy the artwork of Bill Keane and the Family Circus. In case you're wondering, that most popular Sunday was called the Top Hat Sunday. In order to be as complete as possible in my research, I sacrificed for you. That's right. I went to the Sugar Bowl 2 weeks ago to try my very first ever Top Hat Sunday. I know you're all touched, right? And there it is. I felt like an Instagram person taking pictures of my food, but it was so good. I wanted to give you guys the inside scoop, pun intended. It was absolutely wonderful, and I highly recommend it. Are there any questions? And while I'm waiting, I will ask you the question that I asked Carol, or I'll answer the question. I asked him, how has the Sugar Bowl stayed open? How's it been doing during the pandemic? And Carol said that COVID-19 has been brutal on the Sugar Bowl. He has one location. He can't try to maximize one location over another. His weekday business were locals and visitors who want a nostalgic meal. This group isn't going to go out during the pandemic. He was forced to close from March 15th to May 15th during the pandemic. And when he could reopen, he had to remove 11 tables and 30 chairs to stay in compliance with the state health regulations for physical distancing. This right now should be the peak of his season, and he's made less than 50% compared to last year. He still has the same employees, equipment, and food costs, and he can't make up that extra amount. He said that he did get a PPP, a payroll protection loan, but that the money went directly to his employees and is, of course, long gone. Carol explained that bars try to keep people there to buy more alcohol, but an ice cream parlor is different, more like a restaurant. Although a child may want more and more ice cream, the parent wisely limit it. The Sugar Bowl has to turn the tables like a restaurant and hope for a lot of to-go traffic. So there's a question saying, why was the fifth child never mentioned? He made several of the children sort of a hybrid of the children, is what he said. He said the one girl was given a different name as the cartoon version of her, and that some of the boys were just creations or just amalgamations of some of the other boys. Thank you for asking me that question. With no other questions, we're going to move on to our next story. And this one's called There's Joy in the Insurance Business. And this picture will all make sense in just a minute. From the outside, 8111 East Thomas Road looks like any other insurance office. Nothing worth your time or your attention, but looks can be deceiving. Now, this building is located to the east of Hayden Road on the south side of Thomas. In order to figure this out, let's talk about the person behind this, and that's the owner of the business, Joy Estes. Joy was born in Roswell, New Mexico, and an undisclosed year, or let's just put it this way, I was sworn to secrecy. She still maintains that her brother was an alien, and she said that this is a family photo of her brother. Her father was advised by an uncle to try the insurance business, but he wasn't sure if he could sell. So to test it out, he was moving to Arizona. He came to the Flagstaff Williams area and became a door-to-door Kirby vacuum cleaner salesman. And in just 6 months, he became the top salesman in the state. He was offered a job by Kirby. He turned it down and became a State Farm agent in Flagstaff. Here's some of the ads from the Flagstaff newspaper. And to this day, if you walk into Joy's office, you'll see a vacuum cleaner, but not just any vacuum cleaner. It's a Kirby vacuum cleaner. As a reminder of how far that not only her father, but her whole family has come. Bill became a pilot and actually helped State Farm by being able to cover other cities when he had to fly out there when an agent had to leave or an agent was retired. He could fly over to another city, say Kingman, and help out the clients there. Joy Trent was 5 years old when the family moved to Flagstaff, and she attended Flagstaff schools and participated in sports, such as volleyball, basketball, and track. She was an honor student in the top 10% of her class. She was the captain of the volleyball team. She was the captain of the basketball team. She won 2 ribbons and a 3rd place medal in track. She was selected for the AA North Volleyball All-Conference team. In high school, she received in every class except one. Driver's education, she got a B. Now, how ironic is that for someone in the future that she now sells insurance? In her senior year, she was nominated to attend West Point by Arizona Congressman Sam Steiger. And why this is so amazing was this is the first time that women were allowed to apply to West Point. So she was in that very first class, one of the first women to be there. She stayed for a year and then her high school boyfriend proposed to her and she got married. She left West Point and went to NAU. After graduating from Northern Arizona University, she tried several jobs before working for her father. Her father encouraged her to start her own business. So she, as a woman in her mid-20s, had to go and knock on doors in what is called a scratch, or what was called then a scratch business, and create a client base. She picked Sedona because it was the first available and closest to the town of Flagstaff. In 1985, she attended a State Farm conference in California, and she met Ed Estes. 8 hours after they met, they were engaged, and they've been married for 35 years. Can you believe that? After they got engaged, she commuted back and forth from Sedona to Scottsdale for 9 months. She then planned to move to Scottsdale and open an office with Ed in 1986. Originally, they opened their agency at Thomas and Civic Center Boulevard, and they bought a building on Thomas and 77th Street that's now the Make-A-Wish building. And they bought the current building of 8111 East Thomas in 2001. There's a photo hanging on the wall of the office, and this is called Main Street Memories. It's a painting by Randy Souders. State Farm sent it to all agents in the mid-1980s who achieved some sort of selling goal. Joy decided to use this painting as a template for her new office. Here's a zoom in of it. And if you take a look at some of the things, there is a State Farm business right on Main Street. Every business has an awning. There are park benches on the street. There's a cobblestone roads, a fire hydrant, a barber pole, and cloudy sun and clouds. Now, if you look at Joy's office, you will see many of the same things. You'll see awnings. You'll see a park bench. You'll see the cobblestone appearing roadway. You'll see the sun and the clouds up in the sky. There's also hidden in here, you have to go searching for it. It's almost like a scavenger hunt. There's a barbershop pole, a gumball machine, street lamps, and this is a fire pole right there. Back when digital cameras were first introduced, Joy was getting ready to go out and take some photos of some property, and she had her old school camera with film and remembered she needed to take the new digital camera. She put the old camera on a table in the lobby and ran back to get the digital camera. A client who was visiting the office at the time said, "Oh, do you collect cameras? I have a brownie you can have." The client brought in the brownie. That's right here, that picture. And it was left on the table. Then the collection seemed to grow organically as clients came in and left their own treasures for Joy. Today, there are more than 20 cameras on the table. People keep bringing them in and other things for the collection. Slowly but surely, the unofficial Museum of Arizona History was born. That's my term, not Joy's. And I'm going to show you some of the things. What I'm going to show you is such a small amount. It really is one of these things I could have done several hours on, going from room to room in this office building. So let me just show you a couple. Joy's a big fan of Willie Mays, and she has a display of photos with autographs of the Super Slugger. One is from his rookie year, one when he won a World Series or was in the playoffs or pennant, and another one when he retired. She's a big fan of Alice Cooper, and he was nice enough to autograph an album for her collection. And she has a gas pump display case that she's filled with State Farm vehicles and other assorted vehicles from her collection, all that can be seen right as you walk in. One of my favorite things when you walk into her office, you can see a pump organ. And I'm actually getting ready to show you something or play something for you so you guys can tell me if you hear this. So this pump organ, Joy sat down and she played back in December a few bars of a song. I remembered it as The Entertainer. Joy told me it was Phantom of the Opera. Now I'm going to play this for you and you guys tell me, you can type it into the Q&A if you know what this one is.
That's all I know.
I think that's enough to figure out what song that was. I think we were both wrong. You can tell me if you know in the Q&A. So another interesting thing about this pump organ is there's different things on display, and I could tell stories about many of the things here, but one in particular I wanted to tell you about was right here, the squash blossom necklace. This necklace was purchased by Joy's father, Bill Trent, after a fire in Flagstaff at the Babbitt department store. He paid $500 in the late 1960s for it. One day, an older client of Joy's saw the necklace and told her how beautiful it was and how lucky she was that her father purchased it. Joy took it off the organ and put it around the woman's neck, and she enjoyed it so much that Joy said, "It's yours, have it." The woman had the necklace for more than 10 years. A few years ago, the woman's daughter came to the office to take care of her mother's affairs after she died. The daughter told Joy that she was under instructions to return the necklace to Joy after expressing how much she loved wearing it while she was alive. The necklace sits on the piano waiting for the next customer to become the temporary owner. There's a damaged cash register out in the middle of the office. And I was fascinated to find out that this is from the 1880s. And for Scottsdale, this is awesome because what happened in the 1880s, Winfield Scott in 1888 purchased the land that became Scottsdale in 1888. So this cash register is something that's been around since the time of Scottsdale's founding, and it's found its way to Scottsdale. I think that's pretty cool. She uses it. She had another client that helped rebuild it, and she uses it for display things. There's different things in all those drawers. It's really cool to take a look at it. That old cash register that you have to push the button in. Again, children have no idea what it is. It's a close-up view of it. Just an awesome thing to have. Possibly my favorite thing in the whole in her whole office were these 4 photographs. They were given by a customer whose last name happened to be Stapley, and his grandfather is in one of these photographs. The photos catalog the creation of the Roosevelt Dam, or the dedication of the Roosevelt Dam, in 1911. So here on the top left, here's a picture of Roosevelt, and he's driving to Roosevelt Dam from the Metro Phoenix area. Here's Roosevelt at the dam. Here's another picture looking down at the dam during the dedication. And then this is a picture of Roosevelt Dam. And with your permission, I'm going to do a little quick tangent on this just because it's so fascinating. Here's a short history of Theodore Roosevelt. He was born in 1858 in New York. He was a sickly child, but embraced a strenuous lifestyle and was fortunate enough to grow out of asthma as an adult. He served as an assistant secretary of war in the McKinley administration, but resigned to command the 1st Volunteer U.S. Cavalry, which became known as the Rough Riders, in the Spanish-American War of 1898. He returned after the war and was elected governor of New York. When Vice President Garrett Hobart died in a heart attack, Roosevelt was nominated vice president for McKinley in the election of 1900. McKinley was assassinated months after the inauguration, leaving Roosevelt the 26th president of the United States from 1901 to 1909. He was famous for policies such as big stick diplomacy, which he defined as speak softly but carry a big stick. Roosevelt wrote a book about his exploits as a Rough Rider, and Buffalo Bill's Wild West show immortalized them in performances around the country. Roosevelt proposed legislation that led to the establishments in parks and waterworks that allowed Arizona to develop into what it is today. In case you're confusing Theodore Roosevelt with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, this was actually his uncle through marriage. Roosevelt's 5th cousin was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but because he married his wife, who was a niece of Theodore Roosevelt, he was a nephew by marriage. On March 18, 1911, President Theodore Roosevelt, in a special car, was driven up to Roosevelt Dam for the dedication ceremony. He was driven here by Wes Hill, the owner of the Apache Trail Stage Company. Behind Wes Hill, right back here, is Arizona Territorial Governor Richard E. Sloan. And right here is a man named Stapley. And this was the grandfather of the client who gave Joy this photo. The other interesting person in this is this man right here, who's named Dobson. Isn't it fascinating that 2 of the people, Stapley and Dobson, now have names after their family, streets in Mesa named after their families. So Roosevelt left Phoenix, took the Apache Trail up to the Tortilla Flats, and then on to Roosevelt Dam. This is probably the most direct way to go there, but it's not the way that we can go there today. I'll explain that in just a minute. These are photographs from 1918 of the Apache Trail Highway, and you can actually see a car down here and what it would have been like back then to drive to Roosevelt Dam. Here's another one, fascinating picture of the snaking trails down the roadway that you would have to travel to get there. He stopped for lunch at Tortilla Flats and is considered one of the more famous people who have stopped there. And the restaurant is still open to this day. It said that he was gracious to the proprietors, sat on the front porch smoking a cigar after enjoying lunch in the clean air and spectacular scenery. When he arrived at Roosevelt Dam, he would find a structure built by humans that was larger than Niagara Falls. The dam cost $10 million in 1911 and was 280 feet tall, the tallest dam in the world at that time. The dam was raised in 1989 to 1996 to 357 feet tall at a cost of $430 million, a lot more. It was originally called the Salt River Dam and was renamed Roosevelt Dam in 1959. As a comparison, Glen Canyon Dam, built in 1966, is 710 feet tall, and Hoover Dam, built in 1936, is 726 feet tall. So it's almost double the size of both Glen Canyon and Hoover Dam are almost double the size of Roosevelt Dam. If you're going to travel there today, because this route through Tortilla Flat is closed due to rain and snow, You have to actually drive almost to Payson and then come back down, or you can go a longer route through Superior and Globe and come up northwest. I was actually fortunate to find a group of photographs of the story that shows his dedication of his speech. And then I found a wonderful clip from the Library of Congress and the Theodore Roosevelt Association, a video of Roosevelt at this ceremony. So I contacted the Theodore Roosevelt Association and the Library of Congress, and they've given me permission to show you this clip. So let me tell you what's going to happen. Roosevelt, who's standing here, is going to stand here in just a second, and then three guys are going to jump up here, and Roosevelt's going to move over and he's going to ask them to get down, and then it's going to cut abruptly and he's going to be standing there talking. So here, without further ado, without sound, we can only see it, is Theodore Roosevelt.
From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
There he is on the right. The three guys jump up. Roosevelt asks him to go down. And now here he is speaking. Amazing, 111 years ago, and we can see, or 110 years ago, we can see Roosevelt was invited after this to speak at Tempe Normal School 2 days later. And he was told that he would be able to speak from his car, that about 30 people would show up, and he would only speak for 3 minutes. So he agreed because he was told that 7 of the soldiers of his unit, the Rough Riders, had graduated from Tempe Normal School. So when he showed up, there was a slightly larger crowd. This is a picture from that day. Looks like the entire town of Tempe and Tempe Normal School all showed up. There's Roosevelt. And he made a quote that by today's standards is kind of humorous. He said that Roosevelt Dam would probably be able to support 100,000 people living in the valley by the year 2000. He was just a few million people off the mark. He probably would have said, bully. Phoenix passed 100,000 residents in 1950. Today, this building is still around. You can go there. You can go onto the steps where Roosevelt stood. And many graduates go to this school to take their pictures of this same spot, although they don't know they're going to the same spot as Theodore Roosevelt. Because this, of course, is Arizona State University. And that building is Old Main, where you can go today. And as I said, take a picture on the same place that Theodore Roosevelt. Many graduates get their graduation photo taken in front of Old Main. Now, I apologize, I went for that tangent because it's so integral to Arizona that all this power, all this electricity, all this water came into the valley that allowed the valley and Scottsdale in particular to have the population. Before Roosevelt Dam, the type of energy that was given to the valley was so slow that lights flickered all the time. But after Roosevelt Dam, we had the same sort of power that we have today. I think it's called 60 cycles. So I could have gone into so many tangents other than this, because once you learn about Roosevelt coming in, what a huge part this played in Arizona's history. There was a tragedy on the Apache Trail that day. While he was riding up, a horse and wagon fell over and somebody died. I could have gone onto that tangent. Bucky O'Neill was I was reading Arizona Highways magazine. This is the February issue, 2021. And there's a story about Bucky O'Neill. It turns out that Bucky O'Neill, famed Prescott, was a Rough Rider, and he was actually killed in the Battle of San Juan Hill in 1898, fighting alongside President Roosevelt. So Bucky O'Neill has this incredible history that he was in Tombstone just months before the shootout at the OK Corral. He knew the Earps. He wrote for the Tombstone Epitaph. That's a newspaper that's still published to this day. He was a deputy marshal in Phoenix in 1882. He moved to Prescott, where he wrote for a newspaper, served as a judge, and was the mayor of Prescott. His wife, an incredible lady as well, She fought for women's right to vote, and Arizona got the right to vote for women almost 2 decades before the United States gave women the right to vote. And she was not only instrumental in that, but she became an Arizona legislator. Again, this is before the United States gave women the right to vote. So this is, I could do a whole thing on Bucky O'Neill, just fascinating. There's a statue of him that's in Prescott in the Townhouse Courthouse Square. Then I found Phoenix Magazine, January, February issue 2021. They had a story about how it's called Where the Buffalo Swim, about the commercial fishery in Roosevelt Lake and the fish that were brought out here from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. In fact, if you look, it says it was sold at Smitty's. I used to love Smitty's. And buffalo fish was 49 cents a pound. It says freshly caught from Roosevelt Lake. All the wonderful tangents I could have gone. But I said to Joy, let's look at some other things. So I looked at this coffee table that she had with a display of State Farm road atlases going back to World War II. I thought that was cool. Then in the middle, there's this Arizona Republic magazine celebrating its 75th anniversary in the 50s. Underneath that, we took a look, and there was a magazine from Salt River Project called Arizona Grows Where Water Flows. Opened up the page, and what do we see? President Roosevelt, and a great day for Arizona when he opened up Roosevelt Dam. Tell you, once you start looking, you will see this everywhere. It's just amazing. She has so many more things to look at. Let me show you a couple of things. Here's the Ballad of Davy Crockett in the original 45. These are 8-track cassettes and an 8-track player. These are cassette tapes and a cassette player. But one of my favorite things, and I was only around here for the end of it, a Ladmo bag. If you didn't grow up in Arizona, let me tell you a little quickly about a Ladmo bag and what this means. There was a TV show on Channel 5 from April 1st, 1954 until December 29th, 1985 called Wallace and Ladmo. It was usually broadcast in the mornings, Monday through Friday, and it ran for almost 35 years and is one of the longest running daily locally produced children's shows in American broadcasting history. It starred Bill Thompson as Wallace, that's this guy on the left, and Ladmar Kawatowski as Ladmo, and Pat Mcmahon. Here's a better picture showing Pat Mcmahon. And this is the same Pat Mcmahon who used to do the morning show on KTR for 20 or something years. He joined the cast in 1960s as characters such as Gerald, who's this guy, Aunt Maud, Captain Super, and Marshall Good. The show won 9 regional Emmy Awards in the mid-1960s. The Ladmo bag was invented as a prize for whatever contest they were doing in the episode. Pat McMahon was credited by Wallace for inventing the Ladmo bag. The sponsor of the show usually provided whatever was in the bag. It could be candy, potato crisps, soda, coupons, etc. In fact, the term, "I never got a Ladmo bag when I was a kid," was a metaphor for I had a deprived childhood growing up in Phoenix. And here's another picture of Wallace and Gerald with the Ladmo bag. Just awesome that she found this. Now, apparently this was given to her by one of her customers or clients, and it wasn't an original, it was something that the 7-Eleven company did after that, but it's still incredibly cool to me. Joy not only takes pictures of all of her staff and puts them in, but she also makes them topical for the different times that the photos are in. For example, this is when the Scottsdale Police Crisis Dog, Chase, the one who replaced Fozzie, the very first police crisis dog, was coming to the office to meet Joy and her staff. There's a picture of Chase. So she had t-shirts made up with an American flag with a picture of Chase or a dog like Chase, and they were all wearing it when Chase showed up at their office for a photo. Joy developed a partnership with the Scottsdale Police Department and sponsored shredding events and game kickoff events for neighborhood watch captains who were planning the annual party in their neighborhood. When the pandemic struck, Joy took a group photo and everyone wearing masks. Today, Joy loves going to work every day and works in one of the most interesting offices in Scottsdale. She invites anyone who'd like to stop by and see her office to stop by and say hi. I asked her, what happens if 50 people show up on a tour bus? Would she be okay with that? Her reply was, what a hoot. Let's not try and find out, please. She said that people usually bring something for the collection, but it's not a requirement. We're almost done, but I had to tell you one final surprise, and it happened when I was walking out of her office, or walking into the office, and I was greeted by an employee. I didn't catch his name at the time, but I wanted to share the story. Here's the guy. I didn't really notice it. And then after the photo, it's really when it sort of struck me, that guy is Jake from State Farm. I met Jake from State Farm. Joy loved this so much when they started doing the Jake from State Farm ads that she had shirts made up for everybody, and they did the photo. It says, be the Jake, and everyone, of course, is pointing at Joy's version of Jake from State Farm. So are there any questions? I see there's some questions, and to answer some of these questions, we're going to stop sharing, and we'll take a look at them. I'm going to ask, we have a guest here, and that is Joy Estes is here. So Joy, would you turn on your camera?
Hello.
And you look at that, the pump organ is right behind you, just what we talked about. That's awesome. In fact, the first question, Joy, maybe you can help us by answering this because I don't know the answer to this. What brand is the pump organ?
Oh man, I don't even know if, let's see. Bolin, B-O-W-L-I-N.
Baldwin.
Don't know,
okay.
Bolin, yeah. And it still works.
And someone asked if Jake, who works for you, if he wears khakis.
Always,
Oh.
absolutely.
That's an awesome question, Judy. Thank you. And from the previous question, someone asked, why didn't I get a bigger sundae? That's the question. That is definitely the one, that's the top hat. And it's big, it's more than filling, believe me. Well, Joy, thank you so much for letting me come over to your office and take all those pictures and take up your time. I really appreciate it.
Always my pleasure, thank you. And I love your tangents. You get an A-star in tangents.
Thank you. Well, and thank you all very much for coming. Joy, thank you so much for everything that you did. And thanks to Carol Huntress. Let me go back to the PowerPoint just so I can do my credits really quickly. This is the end. I want to thank all the people who helped me with this from Scottsdale Citizen Service, our Scottsdale Downtown Specialist, Jackie Contaldo, connecting me with Carol Huntress, Scottsdale historian, Joan Fidala, always a wealth of knowledge and always helps me out, Scottsdale Parks and Recreation, Nick Molinari from the McCormick Stillman Railroad Park, Scottsdale Public Library, Kelly Horton, who I just heard got a job at the State Library, so she's actually no longer with us, Scottsdale residents Joy Estes, Carol Huntress, and Bill Scarborough, who helped me with one of my tangents. And from the State of Arizona Research Library, Arizona Memory Project, Brandy Helwa and Ryan Erfurth, I think. Here are the sources from the Ice Cream Parlor and the Cartoonist. And here are the sources from There's Joy in the Insurance Business. So again, thank you all so much for coming. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you taking out your day. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Hopefully we'll see you next week at the last class for Scottsdale Neighborhood College for this session, and then we'll be back with a new slate of classes in the fall. Have a great day.